If you're a full-time classroom teacher or full-time homeschool parent and you are struggling to have the time you want to build your Teachers Pay Teacher store, then this episode is for you. Being a full-time teacher, whether you are teaching your own kids or teaching in the classroom and trying to have a business at the same time, is really hard. I know, because that is how I started. So I want to give you some tips from our Teacher Resource Academy members, what they are saying is working for them right now as full-time teachers who are also growing on TPT. So let's dive in. All right, so I just wanted to start with some of the things that our Teacher Resource Academy members are saying about how they are making it work as a full-time teacher in the classroom and trying to grow on TPT. So a few of their suggestions was to work at night. So one of our teachers said they were working from 7 to 9 and they were putting in a few hours on the weekends, creating about 3 to 6 resources a week. And then she also has a batch day for creating all of the TPT stuff. So like covers, thumbnails, previews. She kind of does all of that in one day, which I totally get, because usually that's like the least fun part for creating. So if you kind of just have one day and it's like, okay, I only have to do this on one day, and then the rest of the time I can be doing the fun stuff, which is creating, it might make it a little easier. Another teacher, Robin, said that she works Monday through Thursday after dinner, and then she works 2 hours on the weekends, which I think is totally doable. And she actually said she tells her family not to bother her because that is her TPT time. Another thing she said she does is she writes down 3 specific goals before every work session, so she knows exactly what to focus on, which I really love that. I do that too at the beginning of every day. Another teacher, Jess, says she looks at her school calendar each month and she blocks off a full day, whether it's on a long weekend or a break, just for TPT. And I do feel like pretty much every month either has a break or a long weekend, or you can take off a day if you want and have a CEO TPT day. Take off more than one day. Your kids will be fine. And she goes to a coffee shop. She makes it fun and intentional, and she just kind of batches a lot of work. That is a theme that I saw as I was asking these teachers how they were doing it. Batching seems to be a really popular way to knock out a bunch of tasks. Another teacher, Monica, says she works after her daughter goes to bed and during school breaks, and she loves creating, and so that makes it sustainable long term. And I will say, if you are creating things that you enjoy to create, it does make it a little more fun. And even if you have to do some tasks that aren't as fun, knock those all out in one session. That makes it a little easier. Now, I also wanted to tell you guys 10 creative ways to get work done as a full-time teacher. So these were just really fun. And I actually asked ChatGPT for some kind of out-of-the-box ways to really be intentional with your time. One idea was prep power hours with themed days. So I know that this might be a little controversial and it's going to depend on your school, but sometimes you may be able to work during your prep hour if you get one. I know not all teachers do. I know some teachers are like, I literally don't even have time to do my stuff for school. I get that. But I know that there are some of you who may be able to take your prep time, your period off if you get one, to do some TPT stuff. I personally got started that way. I would get all of my grading and things done, and then the rest of the time on my planning period, I would work on TPT. And my school principal did not mind. She knew that I was on, well, this is my assistant principal. I don't know if my main principal knew actually, but my assistant principal was very kind. I actually taught her son, and she knew that I was doing TPT stuff, and she was fine with it because a lot of the TPT stuff I was actually making for my classroom, and then I would repurpose it on TPT. So if you are able to work during your planning period, your prep hour, then do that. And you can kind of make themed days. So like Monday can be messy Monday. So like brainstorming and just kind of like getting everything out of your brain. Maybe you thought of some ideas over the weekend, just get everything out. And then Tuesday can be Tech Tuesday. So like the uploading stuff, the things that you don't like to do, the covers, thumbnails. Wednesday can be Write It Wednesday, where you write product descriptions, or maybe you write the actual resource, or maybe you write emails. So just kind of having themed batch days where that day, this is what you're doing. Because I will say that when you spend time deciding what to do, that is going to cut into your work time so much. If you already kind of have a plan for the week, you may want to do this Sunday night. We actually had another episode with my friend Cayenne all about like getting things done. And this is one of the things that she said was Sunday night, kind of map out what you're doing for the week. Because if you don't know and you wait till you start your work time and then you're trying to figure out what to do and then you actually try to do it, you're not going to have enough time. So Sunday night, after the kids go to bed, before you crash into bed yourself, sit down and map out, okay, Monday, I don't have a lot of stuff to do during my planning period or whenever after school, I can get this done. Or at my kids' soccer game, or soccer practice where I don't necessarily have to be paying attention as much, I can get this done. Number 2 says use your students as inspiration scouts. So when students ask a question or they're struggling with a concept, that could be a great resource idea. And that's kind of actually how I got into my niche, because I taught a lot of lower level students and I saw where they were struggling. And so I made resources to fit their specific needs. And they really took off because a lot of other teachers in the US and outside of the US also had students that were struggling with the same thing. So as your students are asking you questions or you see gaps, you may already know this if you're a veteran teacher, right? You know where their gaps are going to be. Write that down and use those as resource ideas. Keep those as teacher tips to include in your resource. It's a really good idea for finding resources. Another thing that I thought was really cool is something called a trigger. So when something happens during the school day or after the school day, then you do one thing. So during dismissal duty, voice note a new resource idea, like on your phone. After lunch or during lunch, brainstorm one new activity. On your drive home, voice memo, 10 things that you want to get done that week. Just kind of habit stacking things that you are already doing, but that triggers something in your TPT store. When you first get to school, open your laptop and tweak one cover. Just kind of having triggers. When this happens at school, then I do this one small task, and those will build up over time. I do feel like a lot of times teachers are like, well, I need like 4 hours to get everything done. And then they just end up being frozen and not doing anything. Whereas if you just take those little pockets in the day to just do one little thing, it really will stack up over time. Another idea is templates. If you're not using templates, what are you doing? I've been talking about templates a lot. You definitely need to have a template for your covers, your thumbnails, your previews. You can even have like a copy paste template for your descriptions where you just change out keywords and different product features. That is going to save you so much time. And then you definitely need templates for all of your resource types. So if you're making a lot of mazes, have a template and then you just change out the actual content of that maze. Now, I will say one thing that I liked to do when I was creating and making my full curriculums is I would actually batch not by type of resource, but by topic. Because for me, as a high school math creator, getting the actual content into my resource took the longest, like thinking through problems and making sure, oh yeah, I need to make sure to include this type of problem because they're going to have this trouble with this problem, and then they're going to have this trouble with this problem. And I was making a list as kids were asking me questions, by the way, to know those different problems they're going to have. If I were to make like 10 different resources all about the same topic, I could jam those out so much more quickly than if I were to make 10 of the same type of resource. So what I mean is, let's say that I'm making right triangle trigonometry resources. When I would do that, I would make all of those resources for that unit at one time. So I would make the notes, the worksheets, the video lessons, task cards, mazes, quizzes, unit study guide, unit test, all in like a batch period. I mean, now that would take me maybe like 2 weeks to do, but my brain for those 2 weeks were focused on right triangle trig versus trying to make like 10 mazes with different topics over a week. Now you can test both and see which one works for you. It's going to depend on your brain. It's going to depend on your niche, but that is just kind of like a pro tip that I did to really get my full curriculums out a lot faster. And I will say my curriculums, my big bundles are my biggest money makers. So something to consider. Okay. Another idea was to have mini mission moments. So if you have 10 minutes during a part of your day, what is something that you can get done in 10 minutes? Maybe do some keyword research. If you have 5 minutes, can you make one cover based off of template of another cover? If you have 15 minutes, can you write a description using a template? So look through your day. Do you have time before school, during lunch, after school, maybe at a kid's practice, maybe while you're zoning out at night watching a show? What can you maybe get done in those little times? Another one I kind of already talked about, but if you commute, voice message yourself. And then ChatGPT actually gave me this app, otter.ai, boom, and it will transcribe your voice message for you. And then you can put that into ChatGPT. You can actually message ChatGPT. Actually, that's probably what I would do. Get the ChatGPT app on your phone. I would definitely pay for the $20 a month one because it's highly worth it. Voice message it. Then tell it to make you like a summary or a list of what you can do. ChatGPT can really help you with organizing your time if that's not one of your strengths. Another great idea is to find an accountability partner. So inside Teacher Resource Academy, every month we have co-working calls, and we're not getting on there and like talking a bunch. It's like we sit down and work, but having that scheduled time every month, it's always the first Saturday of the month at a certain time to know like, okay, this is my time to work find a babysitter, ask your neighbor to help, or trade off with one of your friends. Like, I watch your kids this Saturday, then you watch mine this Saturday, or ask your partner if you have one, can really help you just have dedicated time to get some things done. And then another thing that I love is having a monthly CEO day for your TPT store. And this is really like a mindset shift that I had to make when I was still in the classroom, to actually treat my business like a business, even though it was a side hustle because I had a full-time job, but to treat it like a full-time business, even when it wasn't. That's, I think, how it became a way for me to replace my teacher salary. There's a lot of other things that went into it, but just having that mindset shift was really important. So once a month, I didn't always do this once a month, but I would try to do once a month, maybe on a Saturday. I would say, okay, I'm going to dedicate like 5 hours. I'm going to look at my data. I'm going to jam out like 10 resources. I'm just going to like get as much done as possible, but I would be really intentional with what I was going to get done. Like, I would map out hour by hour what I was going to get done. And I always had more than I could get done, but I would be okay with not getting it all done. That is another mindset shift you have to make, like being okay with not being able to do everything. But the data piece is so important. Looking at your data, figuring out what is going right, what is not going right. Are there maybe like 10 resources that are not going right that you can optimize in an hour? And then maybe the next hour you want to create 10 resources. It's going to depend on your brain. It really annoys me when people are like, no, you have to like batch like this, but every brain is different. So it's going to take you just trying. If you're like, I don't know how my brain works, just try one method. And then if you're like squirrel and like can't focus, that method probably doesn't work for your brain. Maybe you need a CEO day where all 6 hours you're just doing data and you're writing down data and you're optimizing older resources. Maybe you can do like power hours, like this power hour is data and then the next hour is whatever. Just play around and see what works. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Try something else. And then the last thing I wanted to leave you guys with is kind of a theme I saw. I was asking my Teacher Resource Academy members about how they are organizing their store. You know, some of them had Google Sheets that were like very in depth. Some of them were just like writing things down in a notebook. But the main theme that I saw was, you know, it's not about having all of this time, because you don't. Like, that's really not something that you can change right now if you're a full-time teacher or a full-time homeschool parent. But you can be intentional with the time that you do have, and you can take the steps, even if it's not comfortable for you and it doesn't come like intuitively to you, on Sunday night, to plan out your week. Look at your calendar. You probably know like when kids' practices are, when you obviously know when you have to be at work, when your planning period is, when your kids go to bed. Obviously, things can change. Kids get sick, I know, but like in general, you have an idea of how the week is going to go. Build in those pockets of time to work on your store and be realistic with yourself about how much you can get done, and give yourself grace when you can't get it all done. It's going to be okay. All right. I am just so excited for you guys to implement some systems to help you as a full-time teacher and homeschool mom really build your store, because I truly believe that you can start and grow your store while still in the classroom. I have done it. Many of our Teacher Resource Academy members have done it, and it's possible for you too. And if you want a head start, if you want a step-by-step plan for doing that, I highly recommend joining us inside Teacher Resource Academy. We have the co-working calls. We have an accountability group where you can find that accountability partner to, you know, chat with once a week and see how you're doing. You can also get coaching and feedback from us. The best way to get inside Teacher Resource Academy is through my free training. You can find that at lindsaybowden.com/training, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.